Hey, good evening and welcome to the 2024 high school football season. Over the next 5 months, all requests for weddings, reunions, carnivals, etc., are not going to be honored. Why? Because it's football season. I'm kind of kidding and I'm kind of not. If you're a football fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about because we talk about it in jest, but we're really not. But you can tell by the guys that I have joining with me tonight on the screen, the smiles on their faces. It's like we're all giddy. It's the night before Christmas. We cannot wait. So, welcome back to the National High School Football Podcast that you've all come to enjoy. My name is Larry Godwin. I have with me tonight Joe Mamone from Prep Gridiron Logistics and Zack Poff. He is the MaxPreps National Football Editor. We got a fun show for you tonight. As a preview of the season, got these two national pollsters. You guys know them by now. They know what they're talking about, bring a lot of street creds to the program. So here's the agenda for tonight. We're going to review both of these guys, their national rankings they just published. And then we're going to roll into the top games of 2024 and what they think are the toughest schedules across the country. And then we'll roll into the top public programs and end it talking about the under the radar teams. So guys, y'all ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go ahead and get to it. Hey, let's go just dive right into it and talk about the polls that you guys have published recently. I'm going to put this up on the screen so our viewers can see it as well. And so I've got side by side, Joe, you represent National High School Football poll, and Zack, you've got the MaxPreps poll up there. Guys, they're very, very similar looking over this thing, but you guys have shuffled things around just a little bit as you would expect. Now, I'm looking forward to your key insights because, like Joe, you've got Bishop Gorman as number one, and Zack, you've got Mater Dei as number one, and the number two are interchangeable. What are the differences that you guys see in these two programs that make one and two?
Zack, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost like a coin toss. I mean, you could have gone either way with Mater Dei and Bishop Gorman. The nice thing is they play September 6th. So if they're both undefeated, you're going to see a number one versus number two matchup. And, for us, that would be the 14th time since 2000 that a number one versus number two play nationally. So I hope they're both undefeated when they meet up so they can settle it on the field. And, it's not going to be our job to do. They're going to handle it themselves. So, even like IMG Academy at number three, we both have them at 3. I think you could have made a case for them to be number one to start this year also.
Yeah, they're all going to have the opportunity to get to that number one spot at year end. Anybody who goes undefeated this year at the top is probably going to be the mythical national champion. I chose Bishop Gorman. I think they're with the addition of James Carrington, this St. Francis transfer from a few years ago. I think that he put Gorman's D over the edge. That was a deciding factor. And again, we're going to find out September 6th, whichever wins is going to be number one. So, it's good. The majority of the pollsters, there's 9 national pollsters. 7 had Mater Dei number one, and 2 of us had Gorman. But, if you look at the top 3 or 4, they're all interchangeable. If you start going down the line, you guys both know I'm one of my first clients we ever had at Prep Gridiron Logistics was St. Francis, so I'm extremely close with that team. I get updates from them on a weekly basis, and not many people know. Currently, they have 47 players on their roster with 10 or more FBS offers. I was scratching my head that 2 pollsters don't even have them in their top 25. The difference is, I speak to these coaches, every week, if not every other week, before the season, after the season. Nobody knows how loaded St. Francis is, and that we're gonna see, pretty quickly how loaded they are because they're going to Duncanville, they're going to Mater Dei, they're going to Orange Lutheran, they're hosting IMG, so they're gonna have a chance.
I'll say this too, real quick, Joe. Like St. Francis too, I think a lot of pollsters go back to last season and use that as a factor too much just because they went 5-6 last season, but they don't really look what they have and what they've changed going into this year. And also too, I think Coach Masai did a great job this year. Last year, he started the schedule off crazy. This year, it's tough this year, but a little easier games to start the year before they get into that big crunch. They have a 3-week stretch. They go to Southern California, play Orange Lutheran, go to Texas, play Duncanville, and then they go back to SoCal and play number 1 Mater Dei. So
and they they open up with Pittsburgh Central Catholic, a good test. So yeah, we've seen it in the past. You remember St. John's like 3 or 4 years ago had what we were calling the toughest schedule in the history of high school football, and they went 2-4 in those 6 games.
Yeah,
Duncanville, Mater Dei, IMG. It was crazy, and so people have learned from that. Masai learned from it last year. He was 5-6 because they had so many injuries in the first 3 weeks of the season, and it's such a small school with small numbers. They didn't have a lot of depth. From what I've been told, they got a lot of depth this year, and he actually thinks this is a better roster than the Blake Corum senior year roster.
Oh, that's saying something. And too, also, I mean, it's kind of like a blessing in disguise for Coach Masai, because last year a lot of young guys had to get in and play because of all the injuries. So now they already have all that, game knowledge and playing at a high level, playing against legit competition. That's going to help them a lot this year.
Yeah, and if we go down your poll, Max, Zach, for MaxPreps, you had DeSoto number 5. I have them much lower, only because I want to see how they do. I mean, they got to play.
You're a little tough on Texas, man.
I am tough on them because, in my opinion, they don't play as tough as schedules as these other teams above them.
That's 100% accurate.
Yeah. Now again, if Duncanville beats the crap out of St. Francis, and DeSoto beats Duncanville, I mean, obviously they're going to move up in a big way, but I couldn't at the start of the season put them as high as a lot of pollsters did, but they can get there. Obviously they can get there throughout the year. It's a long season. So that's a major difference between the two of us. We both have Centennial and Milton pretty high, Shaman and Madonna again with North Shore. I can't have them up there with such a low strength of schedule they have each and every year. Aquinas, Carrollton, you're real high on them. I'm not so much because, I know they have a great quarterback, but I'm suspect on, the other 21 starters. We'll see how they do.
They added some key transfers too this year that I think is going to bode well and help Juju out. And hey, Ryan Mosley, he's a under the radar wide receiver. I think he's going to have a huge year for Carrollton. I think they're going to actually win 6A this year, but we'll see.
Right. Yeah, and Coco, you have at number 13. They loved me last year because I was one of the first pollsters to have them in any top 25, and they moved on up, and I think they finished in our top 15 last year.
A lot of people thought they actually beat Aquinas, so
exactly. Yeah. So, and what I love about them is they saw the formula of how to get highly ranked every year by scheduling one really tough game. They had that Aquinas game, and this year they got the IMG game. So let's see how winner. If win or lose, they're gonna, they're not. You don't drop against an elite team unless you lose by like 40 or 50. So that's they can only go up by scheduling an IMG. That's how our poll operates.
So guys, I've noticed, it's very easy to notice that you guys have a lot of similar teams, but there are some teams that both of you have in your top 25 that the other one doesn't have. And that kind of stood out to me as well. Joe, you've got Massillon, Ohio on there. You expecting big things out of them?
I am. I love, again, one of our top criteria at National High School Football is strength of schedule. They're hosting Bergen Catholic, who's ranked number 11 in our poll, and they're hosting DeMatha, who's ranked number 15 in our poll. So I honestly think, because both of those games are home, DeMatha is a really tough place to play. If they beat DeMatha and Bergen Catholic, and again, Bergen Catholic also plays IMG week 1. So if they go undefeated in Ohio with those 2 out-of-state wins, they're a top 10 team, no doubt. So I position them such for them winning those games. If they don't, no big deal. They'll drop a little bit. But I will never. Strength of schedule is huge, and it's the number 1 criteria in our rankings.
Yeah.
Now, Zach, I want to ask you something about Massillon specifically. I read an article on MaxPreps I think it was last week, and it was talking about the most winningest programs in high school football across the country. And Massillon is always mentioned as well as Male High School out of Kentucky. But, our own local Valdosta Wildcats has always, for at least a long, long time, has been recognized as the winningest high school football program. But they have, there's a chance they may be passed this year. And Massillon is one of those teams. You think that's going to happen this year?
I wouldn't be surprised because I believe they're at 948 and Valdosta's at 952. So it's only a 4-game gap between the two. And, Massillon, for me, they're the first team out of the top 25. They lost a lot from last year's Division II state championship team, but they're still very talented. They have a good offensive line and a pretty solid defense. And then St. Ed's, too, another team from Ohio. They've won 3 straight Division I state titles, but they lost the majority of that offensive line. So, Ohio with me, they lost a lot from their top teams from last year.
Yeah.
So they were just on the outside looking in. But like Joe said, man, they got some tough games on the schedule. Like St. Ed plays St. Joe's Prep, Philadelphia Power. So they win that game. You'll see them make a big jump in the top 25. And Archbishop Hoban, too, they were a team just outside of the top 25 also. I think those are, clearly the 3 top teams in the state of Ohio.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I feel like it's my fiduciary responsibility. I don't even know if that's the real word, just made up. I don't know. But I feel it's my responsibility to let you know that, when I read that article about the winningest programs, I posted it locally here and got some feedback from some longtime Wildcat fans of Valdosta High School. And they claim that the winning number for them actually is 956. Instead of 952.
I tell you what, Kevin Aslan, who's a encyclopedia when it comes to covering high school sports, not just football, he's the one that comes up with the data, tracks it all down. So I tell you what, you tell your boys, I'll reach out to him, see what he says, and I'll get back to you, and you can let him know.
Sounds good. Okay, so Zach, you've got Miami Central, which is they're no strangers to one of being the top program. I think Joe, you
remember Larry 2 years ago, they were number one
in
national. They were
number
one in our.
They were coming at my neck, man, because I had them at number 2 behind St. John Bosco. So I lost a lot of friends in Miami that year.
Yeah,
and I gained a lot.
Yeah, you got them all.
Yeah. So I noticed that's a difference in your 2 polls as well. So Zach, you've got them in your top 25, and Joe, you've dropped them out of your top 25 this year.
Yeah, they're just out again. They have a good in-state schedule, but in order to be in my left column of these rankings here, you gotta have an elite out-of-state game on your schedule, and you have to win that game to be in that left column.
Yeah, I think Miami Central, too. You look at last year's team, this year's roster is even more talented. They lost 4 games last year, but if you look back at those 4 games they lost, could have very well beat who finished the year number 1.
They should have beat Gorman. They could have beat Gorman.
They could have beat Norland in both those games. And also the Chaminade Madonna game was very winnable. So they're a team. I think they're a little PO'd after last year losing 4 games and not doing what Aquinas did and win 5 straight state titles. That got short because they lost to Norland a second time. So they reloaded this year. And I think Miami Central is going to be a team you don't want to see. But like Joe said, their schedule is not as tough as we've seen in years past. But I still think they're not going to just be one of the best teams in Florida, but they'll be one of the best teams in the entire country.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, they have a really good in-state schedule. But, to be nationally ranked in the top 10, you can't just have a schedule of same state teams. I'm sorry, that's our opinion.
Yeah. One other difference that I noticed, a couple more, but one that kind of stood out, me being a Georgia guy, I've noticed that both of you had a couple of Georgia teams in your top 25 as well. Now, Zach, you've included Carrollton.
Yeah.
Not in your top 10, but they're just right outside the door at number 12. What do you see about the Trojans this year?
I've always been a big Julian Lewis fan. We saw him as a freshman. He led Carrollton all the way to the 7A state championship game. Obviously, they lost to Caleb Downs, who's arguably one of the best players over the last decade. And that Mill Creek team was absolutely loaded. But Julian Lewis had a huge game in that loss. But last year, they had 2 losses, made it to the quarterfinals. But this year, I think they're going to be even better than they have been the last 2 years. You got Julian Lewis, who's got all that experience going into his now senior year after he reclassified. I think Ryan Mosey is going to be a huge weapon for him at wide receiver. They got a very talented backfield. And you look at the defense, they added some key transfers, especially in that secondary. Huge fan of Zalis Hicks, who's a 5-star former Parkview standout. He lines up everyone on defense. I think Carrollton's going to be a team that's going to make some noise in the state of Georgia. And also, they're going to end the year against Douglas County. that's a team to really watch out for this year too. They added a lot of transfers. That's a team I could see making some noise also. They were just outside of the top 25 also.
Gotcha. Joe, I didn't know if you you probably do, but I didn't know if you realized this, but especially this might be some good background information for our national audience. There's been a change in Georgia high school football that's starting this year. Up until this season, there's been 7 classifications, right? And so going into the off season, the local association, the statewide association, the Georgia High School Association, has basically consolidated all those classifications, and now our highest classification is 6. So a lot of those top second tier programs have been pushed up to the highest classification. We got a couple that went down. And so do you think when it comes to Georgia and consolidation usually kind of increases the competition level for everybody because there's less classifications. Do you think that has the possibility of knocking off one of these teams, whether it's Milton, Buford, or maybe even a Carrollton?
No, I mean, all of us pollsters, we all respect Georgia high school football, especially the top 2 classes, whether it's 7 and 6 or 6 and 5, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I mean, the great thing is in 48 hours from now, Milton and Buford are going to be playing each other, and we're all going to be watching. That doesn't bother me one iota.
I got you. Okay.
Hey, real quick too. I mean, it's funny in the sense that Milton's a defending 7A state champs, and they dropped all the way to 5A. So you take them out of the largest classification. Now, I'd be bummed, man, if I'm in 5A. I'm like, wait, now we got the defending 7A state champs in our same classification, but
that's what Gainesville's saying right now, right?
Yeah.
Here's some trivia that many of the national fans may not be aware of when it comes to Buford High School. They've played in just about every classification in the state of Georgia. Started out as a small school and has grown in student population. So they've won state championships in every classification but one. The last couple of years, they were in Class 7A and never won the 7A state championship. Now that classification has gone away. They're back in 6A. So, people can rightfully say that 7A was the only classification that Buford did not win.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll say this, though. The teams they had over the last couple of years very well could have won state. I mean,
absolutely.
Last year they were loaded, but the team when Justice Haynes was a senior, that team, when they got upset by Walton, I believe, that was a team I thought for sure was going to win state because they're the ones that beat Mill Creek and Caleb Downs that year during the regular season.
Mm-hmm. All right. So just looking at your top 25, you've got several teams from a number of states, but the usual suspects are on there that has the most teams, whether we're talking about Florida, California, Texas. You got Georgia starting to creep up. So I
have Ohio. I very rarely start Ohio with 3.
Yeah.
But I really feel those top 3 teams deserved it this season.
Okay, well, I'll throw Ohio into this next question. Is just based on those 4, 5 states? 4 states. So which one's the best high school football this year as far as 2024 goes?
I say Cali.
Yeah, man, that's tough. I'd probably go Florida, but I think it's a toss up for sure. I mean, if you include IMG with Florida, I think you got to give the edge to Florida then.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's Cali. Look at any state, your top 3 teams. Say Mater Dei, Centennial, Bosco, in any order.
Yeah.
What state can win 2 out of those 3 games?
Yeah, I mean IMG,
maybe Florida.
Maybe Florida. Yeah,
we'll see on August 24th and even the 23rd. Because I mean, Heritage plays Milton, but then Saturday you got Bosco against Chaminade, and then Aquinas against Gorman. So
we're gonna know
those 2-1 in those 3 games. That's gonna be a lot of a good exposure for the state of Florida.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget about Maryland. I mean, St. Francis, DeMatha, Good Counsel.
Yeah.
that's a hell of a 3.
There's a lot of people, hyped on DeMatha this year. I didn't put them in the top 25. I know you got them at 15, but that's a team I'm looking forward to seeing this year. I think they're gonna bring home that WCAC title, and it's been a while for DeMatha, which is crazy to think.
Well, I mean, good counsel and St. John's have been so good. That's it.
Yeah.
And remember Caleb with Gonzaga? I mean, that's been that to me has been the second best conference in the last 5 years behind the Trinity League.
Yeah.
That was that game where Caleb was a sophomore where he threw that Hail Mary to beat them at. I think it was like 46-43.
Yeah.
That's arguably the best high school football game I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree.
Time working at MaxPreps. It's either that one, Duncanville North Shore, the Hail Mary for the state title, or when Bryce Young and DJ Uiagalelei went back and forth in that Bosco Mater Dei game where Bosco raced that 28-6 deficit.
Yep. I agree.
Well, guys, if you're just now getting to this portion of the podcast, you're joining us on National High School Football. This is our first podcast of the season. I've got joining me tonight Joe Mamone from Prep Gridiron Logistics, Zack Poff, who is the MaxPreps National Football Editor. We just got through with our first segment, which was reviewing both of their national preseason polls going into the kickoff week in the next couple of weeks. Now we're going to transition into the next segment. So you want to stick with us because we're about to enter a very fun part of the conversation. And that is the top games of 2024. This should have a lot of conversation around it. So guys, what do you think? Who are the top games that we should be looking out for this year?
I know we agree. Number one, Zach, you tell them.
Yeah. I mean, it's September 6th. Bishop Gorman at Mater Dei. 1 versus 2, any way you look at it, that's the game of the year because there was a lot of chirping last year because supposedly that game was ready to go. Some things happened, ended up not getting played, which ended up being pretty big when it came to deciding a national champ. So this year,
we were right in the middle of that.
Yes.
We were right in the middle of that. And I'm not going to publicize what happened, but yeah, I mean, a Mater Dei had an opportunity to play a phenomenal game somewhere in Florida. They thought it was going to happen. It didn't work out. And by the time they went back to Gorman, it said, this opportunity didn't work out. Gorman had already found another opponent. So yeah, I mean, it was legit. It was legit why it happened. It was nobody's fault. Yeah. But now we get the game that we've been waiting for. Remember the last time those two played? It was a hell of a game at Gorman.
Yeah, that was Bryce Young.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a squad. Or not Bryce Young, Elijah Brown, I mean.
Yeah, Elijah. Yeah, remember, and Gorman was leading for what? 3/4 of the game.
Yeah, that squad was loaded, man. Because Zachariah Branch, he was a junior that year.
Yep.
Well, shoot, that part, I guess question 1 there was pretty easy. Both of you agree. So let's get some disagreement there. Joe, what's your second favorite game you're looking forward to?
My second favorite game is St. John Bosco against Chaminade in our poll. That's like number 4 against number 5.
Yeah.
How about you, Zach? What do you think?
It's hard to not go with Mater Dei Bosco. That's what I got at number 2. Another game too. I mean, it happens every year, but I think Duncanville DeSoto this year is going to be a huge game too. I know you got the Texas teams ranked a little lower, but you look at Duncanville's success the last 2 years. They've gone 29-1. The only loss came against DeSoto last year. And DeSoto, they're riding a 22-game winning streak going into this year. They're both the back-to-back state champs. So that's a game I'm looking forward to. I think I might actually make a trip out to Texas and try to get to that one. I already got my flight and everything booked for that September 6th game, Mater Dei Gorman. So try to get out to a few more games this year.
And on Saturday, August 24th, as part of the Broward versus the USA event.
Yeah.
In addition to Bosco Chaminade, Gorman's playing St. Thomas Aquinas. Yeah. So in that poll, that's number 1 against number 6. So we have a tremendous game there too on that weekend. And you also have Milton playing American Heritage that weekend.
Yeah.
So it's truly that weekend of August 22, 23, 24. You got Mater Dei Corona Centennial. You have IMG Corner Canyon on Thursday, next Thursday. Yeah. You have Milton Heritage on Friday. Saturday, you have Gorman Aquinas and Bosco Madonna.
And even on that Thursday, too, you got Thompson against Grayson, which is a good Alabama versus Georgia matchup. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I ain't doing anything August 22nd, August 24th. I can tell you, I'm going to just be watching high school football nonstop. So,
and I can tell just by the excitement in both of your voices, you're really looking forward to this season.
Yeah, and Larry, the following Thursday, August 29th, in New Jersey, IMG is coming to play number 1 Bergen Catholic. The state's best team and the winner of 3 straight state championships.
Gotcha. Okay.
In our poll, that's number 3 against number 11.
Joe, take a second and just maybe a couple minutes, and you've got a partnership with Flow Football where you've set up some premier national games. Tell us a little bit about that. Maybe some of the games you've got scheduled this year.
So we have three going on. We're going on our fourth year as a partner with Flow Football. I as the number one promoter of high school football games in America, I put hundreds of games together a year.
Yeah.
The best 20 to 30 I put aside for Flow. And we have a great broadcast season starting end of August through mostly it's normally about eight weeks. Remember, because they're only interstate matchups.
Right.
I am not permitted to air anything on Flow. I can't do Florida versus Florida or Cali versus Cali or Georgia versus Georgia. It's got to be interstate.
Sure.
That's just what they want. And I'm happy to say they re-upped my contract for another 4 years.
Fantastic.
So I'll be working with Flow through 2028, which is great. Some of the top games we have this year, Duncan. We have St. Francis at Duncanville.
Yeah.
We have St. Joe's at Good Counsel. Creekside at DeSoto could be a good one. People, Zach, are sleeping on Creekside. We know they got murdered by Mater Dei last year, but what team wouldn't?
Yeah.
But they're a solid team. Any top 10 team from any Georgia class is a good team in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we have that game. We have St. Francis on 4 times. We have them on versus Duncanville. We have them versus Center Grove. Trying to think who else. They're playing IMG at the end of the season. So we have a lot of good games. With the Broward event, we have the Hoover Western game, which could be a good one. We have the Ironton event, which is mid-September every year. This year, Benedictine out of Georgia is playing a Moeller, Archbishop Moeller. That's a great game. So we're proud. We're proud of the 20 to 30 games we broadcast on Flow every season. And the great thing about all of these top programs is that most of them play each other.
Yeah.
Or there's a daisy chain of who played who, and there's some connections. So at the end of the year, mine and Zach's toughest job a lot of the times is figuring out who's the mythical national champion this year, because everybody's playing each other and there's so much crossover. It could be a real easy year for us. How we do differ with my poll is in our poll, we feel that the number one team at the end of the season should be undefeated.
Yeah.
There's 16,000 teams in the world of high school football, approximately. We feel with that many teams, the national champ should be number one. That's why the last 2 years we've had Miami Central and IMG. If there's a bunch of great teams all with one loss at the top, obviously we'll shift that focus and that criteria. But for now, if any of these teams we just talked about in the top 5 or 10 go undefeated, they're going to be at the top in our poll. That's for sure.
Zach, do you agree with that? Should the top team be undefeated or no?
I mean, it varies every year. The way I always look at it is if the best one-loss team and compare the best team that's undefeated. If I feel like that undefeated team could have gone undefeated with, like, for example, when Mater Dei had one loss and they finished the year at number 1, or when St. John Bosco did the same thing, I just didn't feel the team underneath them would have gone undefeated if they played that same schedule. So it varies every year. This year, I think the teams all in the top 5, or at least the top 4, if they go undefeated, they're going to finish the year at number 1. And
Yes.
Francis, too, is ranked a little lower. But since their strength of schedule is so high, if they go undefeated, there's a good chance they could be number 1.
If they beat IMG, Mater Dei, and Duncanville, they have to be at the top.
It's a slam dunk.
Yeah, and Larry, every postseason, I always post just for peace of mind. I always put a poll out. And our social media reaches thousands of people.
Yeah,
and I always put a poll out. Yes or no? Do you think the mythical national championship in the sport of high school football should be undefeated? And 2 years in a row, at least 70% of the respondents said yes. So I'm just giving the fans what they're asking for.
Hey, there's a lot of old school people too, where they feel like if you don't go undefeated, you don't deserve to be national champ. But you look at a Mater Dei and Bosco, it's so hard for one of those teams to win that game twice, where
right.
it makes it tougher, because if there was any other team in the country that had to play Mater Dei twice and beat Mater Dei twice, I just don't see that happening. I mean, you look at Mater Dei,
That's a tough task.
they haven't lost to anybody not named St. John Bosco since 2015. So
Right.
I know. And last year, my thinking was St. John Bosco shut out Mater Dei 24-0 and then lost to Kahuku. So I couldn't have any of them number one because of that daisy chain. So
that's what really cost Mater Dei for me too, was just the way they played in that 28-0 shutout loss, where it was just hard to
even though they dominated in the second game, you can't forget about the first game.
Yeah. And then you look at Bishop Gorman, who went undefeated, where it was hard to, Mater Dei to jump them because of that 28-0 loss. And I looked at Bishop Gorman, and I think they could have had Mater Dei's schedule and still gone undefeated last year.
Yeah, and let's talk about IMG for a minute, if you don't mind. I mean, they're playing St. Francis, they're playing Phoenix City Central, they're playing Bergen Catholic,
and Corner Canyon.
So if they win those 4 games and win outright, and everyone else around them has a loss, you got to consider them too.
And they got Coco also. So.
Coco, yeah.
Yeah, their schedule's tough. We came out with our top 10 toughest schedules, and I believe IMG was at 4 or 5 range around that. So
yep. So now it's great. Again, we have this conversation every year, Zach and I, and each year we're like, this is the best year of high school football ever. And we thought 2023 was, and now 2024 replaced it.
That's the best part about this sport now. I mean, it gets better every single season, and that's what you want. And especially from, the national landscape, thanks to you, Joe, you're setting up all these big time games, and it's just drawing a lot more interest from different states, because at the end of the day, if you reside in that state and you reside in that city or that town, you want to brag about your city or your state. And it gives them the opportunity when you see these out of state games playing, a best team from California against a best team from Florida. And hopefully we get to Texas in that same breath, where we see these teams from Texas playing other teams from California, Georgia, Florida, and Ohio.
And the fans want it. Last year, the game we put together between St. Francis and Chaminade Madonna, ESPN picked up the game. Over 575,000 people watched it. It was ESPN's highest rated high school football game in close to 10 years. So the ratings are showing that people love these interstate matchups.
Yeah.
So, guys, I do have to ask you, we were talking about Mater Dei a while ago. They've undergone a coaching change recently. Does that upset the cart, or do they just roll with it and they're still Mater Dei?
I think they're still Mater Dei. I mean, this is a thing that's different though from last year when they brought up Frank McManus. This was a guy who was in the Mater Dei program, was an assistant coach for 16 years under Bruce Rawlinson. So he knew what it was about, the 3-stripe life. But now you got Ro Lara, who had nothing to do with Mater Dei, had a lot of ties with the president who took over at Mater Dei. And I mean, but it's not going to be an issue for him. The dude coached Long Beach Poly when Long Beach Poly was the team in Southern California, not just in just California, but the entire nation. So this isn't going to be something that's going to be too big for him to handle. I think Mater Dei is going to do just fine. And lucky for him, he's probably got the most, I don't know if it's talented, but the most well-balanced team. Mater Dei doesn't have many holes going into this year. They're pretty stacked at every single position. And that's another thing with Bishop Gorman, is they got a new quarterback coming in. So does Mater Dei, but Dash Barely, he's a stud. And I think Byerly, I think he's going to have a big year. He's a Washington commit. So I think he's going to have a pretty good senior season for the Monarchs.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Joe, you
I was just going to say what I said earlier. I have Gorman number one, because I just think when they added the Carrington kid, the former St. Francis player, who's one of the top defensive linemen in his class, I think that could be the difference in the game on September 6th.
Okay. All right. So let's transition into the toughest schedules. Yeah. We talked about the games you're really looking forward to, but now we're getting into the brass tacks. Who's got the toughest schedule?
Zach, you just published this. You take this.
Yeah, it was tough for me. It was 2 teams in Southern California's Trinity League, but we ended up going with Orange Lutheran. And the reason was every team, all 10 opponents, they're ranked in our preseason top 100 rankings. So they don't really have one easy game this year. They play Mater Dei, who's number 1. They play Bishop Gorman, who's number 2. They also have a matchup with St. John Bosco, who's number 4. And you just look at the Trinity League too. Every team you play in the Trinity League, you're not going to get any easy games. Servite and J. Catholic, much better this year. Santa Margarita should be good. And then obviously Mater Dei and Bosco. I think St. Francis Academy, you can make a case for them too, because their first 9 games this year are all on the road. So they're really the road warriors. They're going to travel over 18,500 miles round trip this year.
Their first 9 games is on the road.
Their first home game isn't until November 1st when they play IMG Academy.
Is their stadium under renovation or something?
No, it's just
like to travel, man.
Yeah, they like to travel. They play their home games at a couple of places. Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, and also the Under Armour campus has a football stadium they play at.
Wow.
So yeah, Zach, one thing about Olu, do you think they benefited because their schedule is so good that some people just threw them in the top 25? I mean, that's why, you could have a great schedule, go 0-6 against those best teams. And I just don't, again, I don't know who they added and who they bring back, but I think they benefited from having such a tough schedule. Some pollsters just included them in the top 25. I didn't, because I don't really believe they deserve it yet. Let them win a couple of those games before they get the top 25 ranking. But what do you think?
Yeah, last year they started out really good. They beat De La Salle, they beat Eastside Catholic, and then they lost to Chandler. But in that Chandler game, TJ Lateef, their stud quarterback, got hurt. He was just not healthy last year, and that really kind of hurt Olu. They had some injuries last season too, but this year they got a great offensive line. Samuel Utu, stud offensive lineman. TJ Lateef back at quarterback. Tauno Ely, stud linebacker. They got a lot of talent. They were super young last year. They bring back just about everybody. But yeah, like you said, they got a tough schedule, and that kind of did factor in a little bit, because you got to feel like you're a pretty good team if you're scheduling the teams that they're scheduling even before they get into Trinity League action. So
yeah, I mean, St. Francis, Gorman, and Sierra Canyon, not even including Bosco and Mater Dei. Those are 3 tough games.
And even like Sarah and Rancho Cucamonga, those are pretty 2 solid teams in SoCal, especially Gardena Sarah. They're going to be pretty good this year also.
Yep. Yeah. And so Olu's number 1. I mean, some of my toughest schedules, obviously, we talked about St. Thomas Aquinas. They got Gorman, they got Madonna and American Heritage. Madonna, we talked about. They have Bosco, Heritage, and Aquinas. Gorman, Gorman has STA, Mater Dei. Kahuku, let's see what happens on Friday. Kahuku had a really rough time with St. Louis.
They barely won,
Yeah, so that could be a blowout. But
also, too, Kahuku was without their best player, Bona Carvalho. So hopefully he's playing on Friday against Gorman. But we'll see.
But yeah, I mean, that's huge, because we all know Gorman's district schedule is really low strength of schedule. So they need those 3 games to pump up their strength of schedule overall. Some people, mentioned Santa Margarita. I mean, they play Bosco and Mater Dei and Centennial. But
you were saying earlier too about that, like, let's see how someone does when those are the 3 teams they got to play. So I mean, that does make the schedule pretty tough. You're playing the.
I get it. Yep, I know. But there are some pollsters that have them in the top 25, and I scratched my head with that.
Guys, just looking at this article that Zach published about the toughest schedules, I gotta say, man, it just looks like Bishop Gorman and Chaminade Madonna, they've got to be favored. One of those guys to finish. I mean, if Bishop Gorman, looking at their, they got just a handful of top teams. They get by Mater Dei. They play number 11 St. Thomas Aquinas, and then number 24 Orange Lutheran. Chaminade Madonna is that number 4 St. John Bosco, and then after that they've got number 20 American Heritage, number 11 St. Thomas Aquinas, and that's it.
Well, the problem with both of those 2 teams is their district schedules are so weak that it brings their overall strength of schedule down. So if they finish the year undefeated, but a team like IMG is also undefeated, or St. Francis with much better wins over elite teams, the strength. That's why, to me, strength. When you look at strength of schedule, the reason we had IMG over Gorman last year was their strength of schedule was about a point higher. That was the difference between 1 and 2, in our opinion.
I agree with you, but my point is, some of these teams, like you've got IMG Academy, St. John Bosco, they just have brutal schedules. More than just 2 or 3. Like, I'm just looking at IMG Academy. They play at number 18 Corner Canyon They're hosting Bergen Catholic.
That's a
They're
neutral
hosting
game too, the Bergen game. So it's
Bergen is
actually it's in Jersey too, so it's more a home game for
I know,
Bergen.
but
Oh, okay,
Zach,
okay.
it's 3 hours from Bergen Catholic, 3 hours south of the Jersey Shore,
Yeah.
2 hours really.
Yeah, so they're playing number 13 Cocoa, number 22 Central Phoenix City, number 14 St. Francis. That is brutal.
Yeah.
So
They don't. That's the thing with like Olu, Mater Dei, Bosco, and IMG is there's just no like weeks off, and that's the thing with St. Francis. They do have some games this year where they should win those games by about 40 points.
Yep. So one team that I forgot to ask you guys about a while ago that I'm looking at this schedule now, and I keep seeing the name Central Phoenix City, Alabama, and we were talking about that team in particular before the show started, and both of you were very high on that program. What are the odds? Over the last several years in the state of Alabama, it's been Coach Freeman over there at Thompson. So is this the year that they get supplanted by someone like a Central Phoenix City?
Well, I mean, they did last year in the state title game, so that's the reason why we had them in the top 25. And a guy that's their head coach, a very familiar name, Patrick Nix, the father of Bo Nix. He's done a tremendous job there since he took over, and they bring back a lot of talent. They obviously lost Cam Coleman, a guy who's going to be a playmaker for Auburn as a true freshman this year, but they bring back the quarterback, Andrew Alford. They got Tristan Lyles coming back, a 4-star edge rusher in the class of 2026. Dalen Upshaw is coming back. He's going to be a big-time wide receiver, offensive lineman committed to Alabama, and Mal Waldrip. So they're going to be talented this year, and they're going to get a chance to prove it when they play IMG Academy.
And Larry, I don't know if I told you, my son goes to Auburn. So I have season tickets, so I fly in every Friday morning and afternoon, and I've been going to some high school football games there for the first time ever, and I've seen Central and Thompson live, and all the top Bama teams have played IMG over the last 5 years, and they've all played them very, very competitive. Not one game has been a blowout, which shows you the strength of the programs there, of the top programs. So I mean, and yeah, I believe that the top team in Alabama with a sufficient amount of returning starters, could be a top 25 team any year, any season.
Yeah, I mean, Central Phoenix City played IMG pretty tough a couple years ago, and then was it
Auburn?
Yeah, and that I mean, that's probably the closest IMG came to losing against a team from Alabama.
Yep.
All right, so perfect segue into our next segment, which are the top public programs. I'm thinking Central Phoenix City's got to be up there on your list.
This year, man, like you look at the top 25 rankings, I mean, there's a lot of public schools in there. I mean, for me, the top rank one for us was DeSoto at number 5, but you got Milton at number 6, the defending 7A state champs in Georgia. And Larry, that 7A playoff bracket, which is no longer there, but that's one of the toughest playoff brackets in the country, and Milton won it last year. And then you got Duncanville, who's ranked at number 7, and then Corona Centennial at number 8. So you got that stretch of 4 teams that are all public schools.
And I think we debate this on our website all the time. It changes year to year, but this year, my top public program in America is Centennial.
Yeah.
And I just love the way they play. They got a great quarterback. Everyone talks about the playoff game against Bosco. They decided to go for 2 to win the game instead of tying and go to overtime, and they ended up losing. But name a public school in recent times that has been able to compete with Mater Dei or Bosco. We know Kahuku last year, thanks to their officiating, in my opinion. But I mean, that tells you something about Centennial. Centennial played IMG a few years ago. Remember the game was 51-49.
That was with Tanner McKee at quarterback, who's now with the Eagles. Yeah, that was another game where, if it was just coached a little better down the stretch, if maybe Matt Logan kicks a field goal when the game's tied, winds the clock down, instead he gave IMG a little bit of time, and Kellen Mond drove down the field, and IMG walked out with the dub. Yeah, I mean, so the Centennial has shown over and over and over again they can compete with all the power privates in America. So yeah, I mean, this year, based on transfers they've gotten in and how much. Well, even a couple years ago, man, you had a public school finish number 1. So with Miami
Yeah,
Central.
I had Miami Central, but why? Why? Because they beat IMG in
IMG,
Bradenton. In
Yeah.
Bradenton.
which is very rare.
Yeah, so yeah, they're my number one team. We've been debating on my site. The Texas people are going nuts, thinking that DeSoto and Duncanville are better. But I'll just say to them, you know what? Look how Centennial played Bosco, and look at how teams like Allen and Duncanville have performed against the Trinity League teams. It's been night and day.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to ask you both a big time hypothetical question.
I love these.
So you got to put your thinking cap on.
Yeah.
If you took the top two programs, let's say in the state of Alabama, Central Phoenix City, and maybe Thompson, okay, you combine those two programs as an all-star team. You take the top two programs in Florida. Maybe it's IMG and maybe Miami Central. Maybe that's a toss-up between the top two. But you combine the top two there: Alabama, Texas, Georgia, California. Who wins that game?
I'm taking Mater Dei and Bosco.
I mean, Mater Dei and Bosco. You can't beat those two.
Maybe that was an easy one.
Yeah.
I mean, if you exclude Cali, I mean, most. Yeah. I mean, IMG and Chaminade or Aquinas has to be a phenomenal team.
Yeah.
Even if you don't include IMG, Chaminade and Aquinas is a phenomenal team. Could beat anybody. Even in freaking Jersey, I mean, Bergen Catholic and Joe's or Bosco, that's a really good team. Ohio, Eds and Maslin is a really good team.
And it's funny, this could get a debate going, because that's always been like Texas's argument is they feel like other states kind of add transfers to certain teams. Obviously Mater Dei gets a lot of transfers, and St. John Bosco. Texas, there are transfers. They just don't, maybe not as much. But if you combine like a DeSoto and a Duncanville, that's going to be a tough team to beat for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. So final topic is who are your under the radar teams? These are the teams that, we know they're pretty good, but they're flying under the radar. Maybe a team that's rising up through the polls the last couple of years that we should be looking out for. Who you got?
You go, Joe. Who you got?
Okay. I'm starting with a team from Texas. They're a brand new client of ours. It's a charter school. It's only been open about 5 or 6 years. Legacy School. They're in the Houston suburbs, around Spring, Katy, that area. They've been doing really, really well of late. They have a player, a 2026 athlete, quarterback / wide receiver, Keyshawn Henderson. That they're making waves. They're starting to make waves. Some publics in Texas are not playing them anymore. They went to the playoffs. They beat a team in the regular season last year. I forget the name of them, but they went to like the 4th round of the state playoffs. So keep an eye on Legacy School out of the Houston area. Again, they're a charter school, not that old, maybe 500-600 kids in the entire school. It's 6th through 12th grade from what I read. The head coach is Michael Bishop, Heisman Trophy runner-up back in the late 90s for Kansas State. He's a quarterback.
Dude, I love that guy.
Yeah, and he's told me what I love about him is he said he knows what to do. He knows what Texas teams are not doing. The biggest gripe and complaint about teams like Duncanville, DeSoto, and North Shore is they'll never leave the state to play an out-of-state elite team. When they'll play St. Francis, Mater Dei, MG, but it's always at home. They will never leave the state, and that's the big complaint.
Joe, is that a state law or an associational thing?
No, not at all. It's them. It's them wanting to play in the comfort of their own home against these good teams, and unfortunately, it hasn't gone so well. I mean, St. Francis beat DeSoto by 40. Mater Dei beat Duncanville by 42. St. John Bosco beat Allen by 38. St. Bishop Amat a while back beat Alito by 35. It hasn't gone well. But the Legacy School, the head coach knows that if he wants to differentiate himself from all the others, he needs to travel. So later this year in October, he's really close to signing a contract to play in Ohio. Next year, he's looking to go to Florida. He's looking to go to California. So finally, we have a Texas team that's willing to go to other elite high school football states and play on the road. And to me, once he starts doing that, every young baller in the neighborhood is going to want to go play for Legacy because they're going to go on some cool exotic trips every season to play in some great high school football states.
Yeah, I got a couple too. I mean, I'm gonna go with the team down in SoCal that doesn't get the hype that Centennial, Bosco, and Mater Dei gets, and that's Sierra Canyon. This is a program last year. The only loss came in the CIF Southern Section Division I semifinals against Mater Dei. They're even better this year, I believe. They got Wyatt Becker coming back at quarterback. 24/7 Sports just came out with the initial rankings for the class of 2027. They got an edge rusher, Richard Wesley, a name to remember. This guy is going to be that next big time edge rusher to come from the state of California. He was the number 2 overall recruit. They also got Havon Finney Jr. He was another high rated guy coming out in 2027. So I think Sierra Canyon's a team to watch this year. They got Bosco on the schedule this year. They got Olu on the schedule. So they'll be playing some of the best teams in Southern California. And they actually get a weak start on most of the other teams from California because they get a trip to the Aloha State, and they're playing Punahou on Friday night. So it'll be fun to see Sierra Canyon to start the year on Friday. And then another team is down in your neck of the woods, Larry, the same state, Douglas County. This is a team I think is going to have a very, very good season. They went 13-1 last year. They added a lot of transfers to an already talented team coming back. I think Douglas County is a team that could for sure make some noise in the Peach State.
Whew, man. Another good team in Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia's loaded this year for sure. It's going to be a fun year, and I think Milton for sure is the best team in the state. And we'll get to see Friday night when they play Buford. But I think when it comes to the second best team in the state, I think there's like 5 or 6 teams you can make a case for as being the second best dog in the Peach State.
And due to the playoffs, they have a really good playoff system down there. It's all going to work itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joe, that's going to wrap it up for me, unless you got any other questions for Zach.
No, we're good. We're good.
I got to ask you real quick, Joe, what games you getting out to this year?
I'm definitely going to St. Francis, Duncanville.
Nice.
I'm going to come out from Mater Dei, St. John Bosco. I'm already going to Bergen IMG in about, 2 weeks?
Yeah, 29.
I normally go to the Broward games, but I got some family stuff going on up here. Plus 3 of the 5 games are on ESPN. The other 2 are on Flow, so I can watch them from my comfort of my living room. That's about it. I'll stick around Jersey. There's some good Jersey games. Bosco's playing Hoban. Again, Bergen Catholic's going to Massillon. I might go to that one. And again, like I said, my son's at Auburn. I have Auburn season tickets, so I go to 3 or 4 those games a year. So when I do go down to Alabama, I'll come in a night earlier and I'll go to one of those games. Whoever's home, a Thompson or a Phoenix City Central, or Auburn High School is a mile from where my kid lives down in Auburn. So real good football. But I'll be out and about every week, and as usual, I'll be texting you. Sending you updates like I always do.
I just remember you celebrating last year in the end zone when St. Francis was scoring. So I'll tell you this, though. I'm definitely going to Mater Dei Gorman September 6th, but I'm going to try and make it out to the Bosco Mater Dei game too. So hopefully I'll be able to make it out there. We can chop it up for sure. I'm going to try and also go out to Texas this year and maybe go see Duncanville DeSoto, but we'll see. I think I'm also too, last one, I'm going to try and go out to the Georgia State Championship games this year. It's December 16th to the 18th at Mercedes-Benz. So,
all right. So listen, I do that quite often. Larry knows I got a box the last couple of years, a suite. So if I get my suite this year, you'll be invited inside of it, obviously.
Yeah, I think
let's definitely meet up at the end of the season at the state championship games.
Yeah, we'll have to do a live podcast with all 3 of us inside.
That would be awesome.
That would be great. That'd be great.
Well, guys, that's going to wrap us up our first edition of the National High School Football Podcast this year. I'm sure we'll be bringing you plenty more episodes. Joining me tonight was Joe Mamone, Prep Gridiron Logistics, Zack Poff, MaxPreps National Football Editor. My name is Larry Godwin. Guys, thank you so much for checking us out tonight. And you're watching the show either tonight or tomorrow on our site, nationalhsfb.com, where people can join the discussion about high school football all year long. And just now it's kicking off in a big way. And this is really when people start talking big time. And if you just can't wait because your state has not kicked off yet, tune in to the state of Georgia, because tonight, starting with the Corky Kell Classic, there's going to be some premier games all across the state of Georgia. 10 games over the next 4 days in the state of Georgia as far as these Corky Kell Classic games. Now, starting Friday night, the rest of the state kicks off. So anyway, if you want to watch some of those games, check out Atlanta News First. They're broadcasting all the Corky Kell Classic games on live stream, so you can check out those games. Anyway, so that's going to wrap us up for tonight. Y'all have a fantastic week, great weekend, and enjoy some high school football. Catch you guys later.
Take care.